Let's get on with rounding up today's news, shall we? And I'm joined to do this brilliant pursuit by the one and only Mr. James Price, former Conservative government advisor. All right, my babber?
All right, my love. How are you doing? How are you settling into your Cotswold palace?
Oh, I'm back in the Shire, baby, and I'm going to make you come and join me. I'm going to make a little Brexit retreat in the heart of rural Gloucestershire. And all the good folk of Brexitiness are going to come and join me, and it's going to be a lovely, calm, crime-free, migrant hotel-free, just pure right-wing joy, basically. Why wouldn't you want to come?
Absolutely right. Well, look, when we win, that's what the whole country will be. Don't worry.
When we win, indeed. And we will. So let's talk now about someone who's not really winning at life, or perhaps she is, Rushanara Ali. She's had to resign. She, of course, is the Homelessness Minister. Why do you need a Minister for Homelessness, first of all? Point one. Why don't you just put homeless people in hotels like they did during COVID instead of the migrants? But she's had to resign because she doesn't play by her own rules, basically. She evicted tenants and said, oh, it's because I want to sell my house. And then within a matter of minutes, the house was back on the market, relisted, with £700 a month rental increase. And she's like, I did everything by the book. It was all according to law. It's the Labour Party who want to push through legislation to make sure people can't do this sort of thing.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? You know, as night follows day, as the dog returneth to his vomit, so the fool returneth to his folly. How is it that so many Labour MPs get caught up in this stuff? How are they so stupid? You've got the anti-homelessness minister getting done for making people homeless. And that's following, of course, the anti-corruption minister having to stand down for, you guessed it, corruption, and a host of other people as well. What was the Transport Secretary? What did she get fired for?
Oh, phones or something.
Pretending that her phone got nicked when actually it was kept in a drawer so she could either have two phones or flog it off. You know, how are these people this stupid that they're willing to destroy their whole careers, their reputations, their livelihoods, all over a couple of £100? It is completely bonkers.
What I want to know is, when you become a minister, by and large, do you get a bit of a pay lift for that? I mean, surely if you've got one of the big offices of state, you're on a tidy paycheck compared to if you're just a backbench MP. But would she be getting a pay lift for being the homelessness minister?
Yeah. A backbench MP gets paid something like, I think it's about £90,000 a year. And ministers go up to something like, I think the PM is on something like 145,000. Ministers in the kind of £130,000 territory.
But even if you're a made-up minister, like the Mickey Mouse Minister for Homelessness.
Oh, yeah, they all get that. Look,
how many have we got then? How many ministers has Sir Keir Starmer got? I mean, the Minister for Homelessness, that's not even a thing.
There's about 100 ministers across government. You can do the math to find people at home. I actually controversially think that ministers are not paid nearly enough, on the principle that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Yeah. And look at some of the people that we've got in charge now. In Singapore, their prime minister gets paid $1 million a year. And Lee Kuan Yew, who founded Singapore, said, look, it's true that we've got the best paid politicians in the world, but I can guarantee you they're not the richest. But what he meant by that, of course, is that they means you don't go in for corruption. And the Transport Secretary in Singapore took, I think, some free tickets to watch the Formula One. They go into prison for doing that after the $850,000 a year salary they were on. So I think we should do something like that when it comes to the salary. And by the way, peg it to the economy. Economy goes up, they get paid more. Economy goes down.
Do you know, I've always agreed with these people. Oh, MPs on 90,000. Oh, isn't that terrible? And I'm like, actually, it's a very important job. You know, you're basically running a constituency of what, 60, 70,000 odd people. You're responsible to look after them. You're supposed to turn up to debates in Parliament, even if they finish at 11 o'clock at night. You're supposed to be in Parliament Monday to Thursday away from home, doing things in your constituency Friday and over the weekend. It's supposed to be hard work. Unfortunately, a lot of them seem to just be dossers. But this is extraordinary. A homelessness minister, like I said, I've got her job done in 10 seconds. Turn up to a cabinet meeting and say, stop putting migrants in hotels, put homeless people instead. Problem solved.
Well, I think that would be a good start on this. Of course, the actual way I think you fix homelessness long term is it's not really about people not having somewhere to go. The sad truth is that a lot of these people are hooked on drugs and they want to stay on the street because then they can get access to the drugs. Where if you go into certain hospices and shelters and things like that, they'll search you, they'll not let you have access to the drugs and these sorts of things. And so the answer is going to be something that squishy lefty liberals wouldn't like very much, which is we're going to have to kind of recreate some kind kind of cross between a prison and a hospital, where you take these people in, you wean them off whatever horrible stuff they've got themselves hooked on, which is not a pleasant experience, and frankly deprive them of their liberty whilst you do that. And then of course you can start going, well, you're in loads of debt and you don't have this, that and the other. And it's very expensive to do that, and there's not a lot of votes in it, which is why it hasn't happened. And it's why clearly Rushanara Ali didn't do a job very well if there are still homeless people out on the streets.
Well, exactly. I mean, my view is look after your own first. It's very simple, because the way I see it, if someone, even if they're a drug-addled monster, there are drug-addled monster, and they've probably gone through some pretty horrible things in their childhood and their past that they ended up in that situation. What we shouldn't be doing is looking after the sort of people we're putting up in Bournemouth. All-inclusive beachfront hotel on probably one of the best beaches in the United Kingdom. Brits who want to go down to Bournemouth Beach are probably looking at paying north of 200 quid a night for the pleasure. And there they are, the migrants living the life of luxury in hotels that frankly should be contributing to the local economy, boosting tourism and hospitality to our coastal towns and cities. And I don't just mean in Bournemouth, I mean around the UK. Climate change this, climate change that. We've had a lovely summer. Lots of Brits might have enjoyed a beach hotel. But no, we're going to put any old Tom, Dick and Harry from Afghan, Syria and Tunisia in there instead. And what's worse is I've done a little bit of research, haven't I, James? Because that's the sort of thing that I like to do. And I have found out how many rapes have been committed in Bournemouth over the past 10 years. And it will not surprise you to find out that more than 100 rapes have been reported every single year in the last 2 years. And if you compare that back to statistics 10 years ago, before the advent of migrant hotels, it was fewer than half that. Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah, well, absolutely right. I think the Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, has made some great points on this, of just the numbers of alleged attacks that have happened even in the last week or so, and against children as well. This is what happens. I'm afraid this is going to be something, again, for all the Guardian readers who are watching this show, I'm sure because they secretly come and hate watch us, that they're not going to like hearing this, but there are some cultures that are better than others. And I happen to think, as reduced as we are, though much is taken, much abides, as Tennyson would say, that Britain still has the greatest culture and society of anywhere on earth. Maybe the Americans and the Japanese can kind of come and rival us for some of that. But when you have people from the third world coming in, when you import the third world, you get the third world. And there's a little known fact this, but there are lots of reports coming out now that the smugglers living it up in Calais, who are getting these people coming over on boat crossings, as part of their advertising campaign, because they do advertise and they do deals and things like that, they show videos of youngish girls, undergraduate age, 18 or whatever, in short skirts and all the rest, out dancing on a night out, wearing skimpy outfits, all the rest of it, and say, look, come over to England and look what you can get your hands on, literally.
Well,
and
no,
they do
exactly. This is exactly what is going on, without a doubt. One of the reasons so many of these men want to get out of Afghanistan is because they haven't even seen an ankle in the 20 years they've been sexually frustrated and roaming around in their desert hellhole. And so they're drawn to coming to the West because they want to enjoy some British women they can mess about and treat worse than cattle because they're not worthy. They can just do what they like with them. I have no doubt that that's what's going on. What's more, when you look at countries like Afghanistan, where they also enjoy fiddling around with kids and marrying off girls at the age of 9, all these men coming over here have a very different idea of how to interact with the general public when it comes to sexual mores than our own men. And you end up with an absolute disaster. And I've seen plenty of videos of the men who come on the boats over to Britain, always giving it all out with the 2 fingers, woo-woo, on TikTok, showing all their mates how great life is. And they always seem to be sitting on a beach, panning the camera around, zooming in on the woman in the bikini, showing off to their mates back at home. Oh, look at these women scantily clad over here. Isn't my life better than yours? I get to drink alcohol and stare at half-naked women and then go on a rampage. This is exactly one of the reasons they want to come here in the first place. It's not just being an economic migrant. Frankly, it's being a sexual migrant.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. And Alex, you've written and spoken very movingly about some of the horrible stuff that's happened to you when you were living in London and why it is, although we joke about going back to the Shire because it's God's own country. One of the reasons you've gone back is to be away from some of this. My wife has had the same. You see it all over the place. And you can also see the flip side of this, if people in these cultures are so like it, why it is that head coverings, for example, are so popular. Rachel Reeves, the sitting Chancellor of the Exchequer, a video has come out of her wearing a hijab going to meet a group of constituents. No one else seems to be worrying about doing this.
To be fair, her hair looks like a hijab anyway. She needn't have blimmin' bothered.
And then you've got, in the school around the corner from me, the dress code requires hijabs for 80-year-old girls.
That's sick.
8-year-old girls. And I just think it's time that we all say, you and I are not knuckle draggers. We say that this is not progressive. These people are not choosing to do this. And for the boat people who are coming over, it might be for them that they need people to be covered up to stop them being so lascivious. But that is not the British way, and that we are putting people in danger. And again, as Robert Jenrick said, he's got young daughters. He doesn't want them growing up being around people who have been caught hanging around outside primary schools.
Yeah.
This is all a political choice, and it's political weakness that while we don't send these people away and make our country
the lurkers, the Botio lurkers, they love taking their positions on the park benches, watching the women go jogging past. They love sitting on the beach, getting an eyeful of the women there. Look, I'm not saying men of our own sort of kin don't do the same and enjoy ogling women, but it's just a very different way because we're brought up with certain attitudes towards women and women having certain freedoms. It's not like going crazy as a kid in a candy store. We know the sort of unwritten rules of how you approach someone, how you talk to someone, what's too much, what constitutes harassment. And the problem is with these men from other countries, because in their mind a woman plays second fiddle, that they can do to a woman whatever they like and she has to be subservient, they've got this thing where they're just persistent. They'll come up and bother you, but beautiful, and when you're like, oi, go, leave me alone, oh no, please, and they just follow and track and pursue and get in your face. And this is the thing, when you look at these statistics, and this is the reported rapes in Bournemouth, over 100 a year. That is ridiculous. What we're not getting in those statistics is the reported sexual harassments, the sexual assaults. For every one woman raped, all the other women living there of a certain age live in terror. So actually, you can pretty much say the entire female population of Bournemouth of a certain age has had their lives effectively ruined by government policy. Ruined. And for what? So we can pay out of my taxes, out of your taxes, for these people to have an all-inclusive beach holiday for the best part of 2 years. It makes me sick.
Yeah, exactly right. Make it make sense. I cannot understand this. The Labour government could have come in and blamed it all on the Tories, right? They could have done that. Instead, they've just doubled down on all this stuff. And so every time people who are watching this and listening to this, they hear something about the one in, one out nonsense. They hear something about, oh, tough new, this, that, and the other. It's all complete cobblers just designed to try and fill newspaper inches to distract you from the fact that they're not getting to grips with the deep reasons for this. And it's the fact that right now, even apparently, according to Dominic Cummings, if the Prime Minister were to order the Navy into the English Channel to stop these, the Cabinet Secretary, the permanent civil servant at the very top of the civil service, would be required to have the Prime Minister arrested. So what we need to do is change the law, change in what they primary legislation at the very top, debated in Parliament and rammed through, that cuts out all of the ECHR nonsense that's been on the domestic statute book for a long time, like Tony Blair's stupid Human Rights Act of 1998, as if we didn't have any human rights before Tony Blair came along. And this, it was only Russia and Ukraine and Belarus who've ever left this. Well, the Americans and the Canadians and the Japanese and the New Zealanders and all the rest, they get on or fine without the ECHR. They seem to have a bunch of rights for themselves. We need to get all of this stuff out there and then start prioritising the safety, the prosperity, the well-being of British people, and those people like Mrs. Price, for example, who are here legally and who contribute both economically and culturally and socially, rather than the people who are coming over who, at best, want to scrounge around.
Yeah, my other came up with a brilliant word the other day. I don't know how sort of politically correct this is, but I don't care. He came up with the word rape-fugee. I was like, I like that. Going to use that one. Right, I just want to ask you another little thing here, because Sarah Pochin, who is Reform UK's MP for Runcorn, apparently spoke out of turn when it came to her party's policy when asked by Peter Cardwell on her thoughts on digital ID. Let's have a little look. Oh, we haven't got the clip there, but what we can do is tell you that she said that she is pro people having digital ID, and yet Reform's policy is anti-digital ID. Where do you stand on this one, James?
But I think there's two bits to this. One is and I'll keep the pop at reform very brief and pleasant and good natured. That these are the sorts of debates to be had behind closed doors. If you haven't got a policy fully fleshed out, don't go on and talk about it. You can do some kind of, we're still working on this, we're still building the policy up. But to have people have different statements in public when you're still a small party in terms of the numbers of elected officials or spokespeople is a bit amateurish. Just like, I don't know, does reform want to have men in women's prisons? Because Big Nige said no, but then Anne Widdecombe said yes, and the new Justice Advisor said yes as well. So that stuff has just got to be worked out if they're going to be taken increasingly seriously as a policy-rich party.
Although one could sort of say that actually in other parties, what we saw the Conservatives is actively fighting over very basic ideologies, such as leaving the EU or staying in the EU, whether you're left-wing or right-wing.
And look how that hurt the Conservative Party. It's not a good idea to do this. Take it from me. I've got the grey hairs now across my beard from all of this. On the topic of the ID card itself, I do think it is an interesting debate to be had. I used to be totally vehemently against it and think that it was more evidence of Tony Blair trying to turn us into a horrible police state. Unfortunately, things have got so grotty and so awful in so many ways in Britain now, with a huge number of illegal immigrants that we've talked about, many more people than we know actually are in the country, because, by the way, Blair and Brown scrapped even the exit check. So we don't actually know when people leave the country properly. We just have to kind of guess. And official statistics massively underplay it. You just have to ask Tesco how much food they sell, ask mobile phone providers how many SIM cards are active in the country, ask the water and the sewage people. There's a lot more people in Britain than we think. And one of the only ways perhaps to deal with this might be something like this. I'd like to see it
I mean, look, I'm kind of with you.
I'm not sure.
I kind of think that if you have a digital ID card, the risk of stealth slippage, where it's all of a sudden recording data that it shouldn't be recording, is quite significant. But when I lived in Brussels, you had a residence card, which was a bit of plastic. And I kind of think if everyone had to have ID to say, yes, I'm a resident here, and it's a piece of plastic, which therefore doesn't involve them monitoring what you're buying, where you're going, and whether you smoke cigarettes or not, then I might be okay about it. James Price, thank you ever so much, my darling. Right, we're going to take a short break now, but I want your thoughts on anything we've been talking about. The number is 0344 499 1000 if you'd like to dial in and have a conversation with me. That would be fantastic.